Welcome to Fairy Tales 1. I'm so glad you're here.
Hello, my wonderful story seekers, and welcome back to our little corner of cozy. Have you ever felt like there's so much to see and hear and smell in the world that you don't know where to begin? Like the whole world is singing a song, and you wish you could hear every single note. Well, pull your blankets up close, get comfortable, and let your imagination open its eyes. The story I have for you today is a very special one. It's called Pip and the Symphony of Everything. In the heart of a valley, so green it seemed to hum with color, lay the village of Tanglewood. The houses were built from smooth river stones and honey-colored wood with roofs made of living moss that sprouted tiny bell-shaped flowers after a rain. And in one of these houses lived a boy named Pip. Now Pip was a kind boy with eyes the color of a twilight sky and hair like dandelion fluff. But Pip had a secret, a peculiar sort of magic that nobody else had. Pip could experience, well, everything. All at once. If a ladybug took its first step on a leaf at the far end of the Whispering Woods, Pip could feel the tiny tickle of its feet. If a baker 3 streets away pulled a loaf of cinnamon bread from the oven, Pip could smell the sweet warm spice as if it were right under his nose. He could hear the low, sleepy rumble of the singing mountains and the high, delicate whisper of a spider spinning its silk in his own attic all at the same time. For Pip, the world wasn't a collection of separate sounds and sights. It was one enormous, beautiful, and very, very distracting symphony. And because of this, Pip was almost always late. Not because he was slow or because he didn't care. Oh, he cared very much, but on his way to fetch a pail of water from the village well, he might become completely captivated by the way the sunlight was making a rainbow in a single drop of dew hanging from a fern. He would stand mesmerized watching the tiny world of color spin and shimmer and forget all about the water. His mother would call him for supper, and he would start for home, but then he'd hear the lonely song of a cricket who had lost its way. And he'd spend the next 20 minutes gently coaxing it back towards its family in the tall grass. The villagers of Tanglewood loved Pip, but they would often shake their heads with a gentle smile. "Oh, that's just Pip," they'd say, dreaming again. The biggest event of the year in Tanglewood was the Festival of Floating Lights. On the night of the summer solstice, the entire village would gather by the river. They would light hundreds of paper lanterns, each one carrying a wish, and release them to float up into the night sky, creating a second river of stars moving towards the heavens. But these were no ordinary lanterns. To make them glow with a truly magical light, a light that was said to carry their wishes all the way to the moon, they needed a special ingredient: sun glimmer. Sun glimmer was a type of dew as rare as it was beautiful. It only formed on the petals of the silent mountain poppies that grew at the very, very peak of the Singing Mountains, and it only appeared for a few precious moments as the first ray of dawn touched the mountaintop. It had to be collected at that exact moment, or it would simply vanish. It was a task that required perfect timing. This year, Alara, the village elder, whose face was a kind map of many years and many smiles, called for Pip. The villagers murmured amongst themselves, "Pip, but he was always late. How could he possibly manage the most time-sensitive task of all?" Alara looked at Pip with her wise, knowing eyes. "Pip," she said, her voice like the rustling of old leaves, "your gift is to see and hear the things that others miss. You notice the small wonders. This year I am entrusting the collection of the sun glimmer to you." Pip's heart did a little flip-flop. It was the most important job in the whole village. He was filled with a mix of terror and pride. "I'll do it," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "I promise I won't be late." That night, Pip set off long before anyone else, a small crystal vial tucked safely in his pocket. The moon was a silver slice in the sky, and the path up the Singing Mountain was steep. But Pip was determined. He wouldn't get distracted. He wouldn't. For the first hour, he did wonderfully. He kept his eyes on the path, his feet moving steadily upwards. But then, the symphony began. First, it was a sound. A tiny hiccuping sob from behind a mossy boulder. Pip told himself to ignore it, to keep walking. But the sound was so sad, so lost. He peeked behind the rock and found a baby badger, its fur matted with tears, separated from its family. Pip couldn't leave it. He spent what felt like minutes, but was probably much longer, making soft, comforting sounds and using his unique senses to listen for the rustling of the mother badger searching nearby. He guided the little one back towards the sound, and only when he saw them reunited did he continue on his way, his heart a little lighter, but the sky a little brighter too. The dawn was coming. He hurried his pace, scrambling up the rocky trail. Then a scent drifted to him so delicious and complex it stopped him in his tracks. It was the smell of pine needles warming in the pre-dawn air, the damp earth, and something else, the ghost of honey. He followed his nose just a few feet off the path and found a hidden hive of mountain bees humming a deep resonant chord as they worked. He watched fascinated as they created their liquid gold, each be a tiny musician in the world's orchestra. He was lost in their world until he noticed the stars beginning to fade. Panic fluttered in his chest. He was running out of time. He broke into a run, his breath coming in ragged puffs. He could see the peak so close now, but then he saw a sight so beautiful it stole his breath away. On a flat, wide stone, the cool night air was meeting the first hint of morning warmth, and a delicate feathery frost was growing in patterns that looked like an entire frozen forest. It was a masterpiece painted by nature in silver and white, and it would be gone as soon as the sun rose. Pip stared, his eyes wide, tracing the intricate branches and leaves of the frost forest. It was the first true ray of sunlight hitting his face that broke the spell. He looked up. The sun was cresting the horizon. The peak with the silent mountain poppies was still a short climb away. He was too late. The magical moment had arrived, and he was not at the right place. He had failed. Pip slumped down onto the frost-covered rock, the crystal vial feeling heavy and useless in his pocket. A tear welled in his eye and traced a warm path down his cold cheek. He had let everyone down. His gift wasn't a gift at all. It was a curse, a constant pull of distractions that made him miss the important things. He closed his eyes, overwhelmed by the sounds of the waking world, the smells of the morning, the feeling of the sun on his skin. The whole symphony felt like a terrible crashing noise. But then, something strange happened. As he sat there defeated and still, he didn't try to push the symphony away. For the first time, he just listened. He let every sound, every scent, every sensation wash over him. He heard the happy squeak of the reunited badger cub far below. He smelled the sweet, earthy honey from the hidden hive. He felt the cold, crisp memory of the frost pattern beneath him and the warm promise of the sun on his face. And he realized something. They weren't distractions. They weren't separate things pulling him in different directions. They were all notes in the same song. The badger's joy, the bee's hard work, the frost's temporary beauty, the sun's powerful warmth. It was all connected. It was the symphony of everything, and he was the only one who could hear all of it. His eyes snapped open. The sun glimmer wasn't just on the poppies at the peak. The sun glimmer was the magic of the first light touching the world. It was the essence of that perfect fleeting moment. And that moment was happening right now, right here. He looked down, and he saw it. On the edge of the very rock, he was sitting on a tiny droplet of dew on a patch of humble mountain moss was catching the new sunlight. It wasn't just shining. It was glowing with an inner light, a light that seemed to hold the warmth of the sun, the coolness of the frost, and the silver of the stars that had just faded. He saw another drop on a spider's web nearby, pulsing with the same quiet magic. It was everywhere. Carefully, Pip opened his vial. He didn't race to the top of the mountain. He stayed right where he was, and with the gentle touch he'd learned from watching the world so closely, he collected the dew from the moss, from the spider's web, from the petal of a tiny, nameless wildflower. He filled the vial with the sun glimmer that wasn't just from the peak, but from the heart of the whole mountain. When Pip walked back into Tanglewood, the sun was fully in the sky. The villagers were gathered by the river, their faces long. They were preparing to use ordinary candles for the lanterns. Elara saw him coming, and a small smile touched her lips. "Pip," said the baker not unkindly, "you're late, the moment has passed." Pip didn't say a word. He walked to the head lantern, the one Elara always lit first. He uncorked his vial and tipped a single drop of his collected dew onto the wick. The effect was instantaneous and breathtaking. The lantern didn't just glow. It blazed with a light that was soft and powerful all at once. It shone with the golden warmth of honey, the silvery sparkle of frost, the deep green of moss, and the pure, brilliant white of the morning sun. It was a light that seemed to sing. One by one, they touched the other lanterns with the sun glimmer, and soon the entire riverbank was bathed in the most beautiful light anyone had ever seen. That night, as the River of Wishes floated into the sky, the lights were brighter than ever before. It was because for the first time, they weren't just filled with the magic of one place, but with the magic of everywhere. Pip sat with Elara watching them go. He wasn't late anymore. He had learned that the greatest gift wasn't being able to be everywhere at once, but being able to find the wonder of everywhere all at once right where you are. And that the most important moment is always, always now. From that day on, he was still Pip the boy who noticed everything. But now everyone understood that, when you hear the whole symphony, you're never truly late for the music. And with a soft, warm glow, our story comes to a close. Pip learned to find the magic not by rushing to a specific spot, but by appreciating the symphony of wonders happening all around him all the time. Perhaps we can all learn from Pip to find the symphony playing right in our own backyards. If this story lit up a little corner of your day, a simple like would be a wonderful way to let us know. And if you subscribe to our channel, you'll be sure to catch the first whisper of our next adventure together. Until then, keep listening for your own symphony. Sweet dreams.
See you again, and do like, share, and subscribe the channel. Fairy Tale.